Okay, so it's been a while, but here's some new updates I've been working on. First off, you might notice I have a few new characters here. I'm going with a little bit more realistic look for the new ones. I might just go with a single character. I haven't decided yet, but it'll be easier to create the gameplay mechanics and balance everything and make it interesting with a single character who can do multiple things versus a group of characters all doing individual things. So you'll be able to shoot the bow, attack with a sword, interact with items, build things, and all that kind of stuff. So everything will be concentrated into one character. I may have the ability to have followers who will just maybe follow you around, or maybe you can set them to a like a guard post or something. I haven't decided yet. I might not, but it just depends. Anyway, going with a bit more realistic look for these characters. This is based on the English longbowman as opposed to the fantasy barbarian type that I was using. So these probably won't actually be in the game at all. I'll have some sort of enemy that's appropriate for the time period and actually, would be an enemy. Maybe some sort of French troop or something like that. Anyway, these are two different uniforms. I might let the player choose because I really can't decide on which one to be the final. This one's not entirely finished. It doesn't have the accessories or the details, but this one's a little bit more done. So I may just create maybe 5 or 6 variations of that and let the player choose which one they want. I haven't decided yet. But anyway, so this is a longbowman character. I finally got the shooting mechanics working. It took a few days to get working. I had to sync the bow animation, which was in a separate animation, completely a separate rig, separate file, and then sync that to the person shooting, so they both happen at the same time. And there are event triggers on the bow animation because it has to be attached to the object that has the animator, and since this is using a different rig, the bow has its own animator, so it has a lot of events there for shooting the bow, shooting the arrow and making the everything work. And there are a few event triggers on the guy himself as well. But anyway, you'll notice that I have some new animations as well. This is a longer idle animation. When this game was first started, I was going with a 2D engine, which was Construct 2, and it was fine, but all the animations needed to be pre-rendered into frames, and the more of those there were, the more memory it used, so I had to limit them to say 30 frames, give or take, just so I can have enough animations and not use too much memory. But now that it's in Unity and in 3D, I don't really have those constraints anymore, so all the animations now can be a little bit longer. So this one's probably about a little over 200 frames, I think, compared to 30, and you can see how it allows a lot more freedom to move around, to look around, to stretch, to act more like an actual human rather than just back and forth repeated motions just to add life to the character. This one's a lot more realistic, a lot more adds a lot more life to it, I think. And I have a new walk animation as well, which I've been working on. Just a little bit more lively animation, a little bit more realistic, a little bit exaggerated, but I wanted to make it look decent from a distance. Since you're looking at it from top down, I wanted to make it look decent. And I had to make it so it wouldn't clip through anything, like the bow wouldn't clip through the arrows there or whatever. And I may or may not make a different one for when he's holding a sword, but I haven't decided yet. I also have animations for interacting with objects. You can see if I click on this crate here, he'll put his bow away, bend over and pick it up, and then a different walking animation for carrying stuff. So anything can be carried that can be highlighted. So I can carry this barrel pretty much the same way. He'll bend over, pick it up, and wherever I go to carry it, he'll put it down. And right now I have it set up so I can just right click to drop everything. I have a pretty detailed pickup animation, which takes a while, but in case you get into trouble, like if you're carrying this someplace and all of a sudden you see an enemy, you can just click to drop it and then start attacking. And speaking of attacking, I have a little target set up here for temporary testing, so let's try it out. So I'll just click to engage the shooting mode, and he'll fire at the target there. And I may or may not have something like this in the final game, but it won't be quite so generic with the red paint on it, because I want him to be able to build stuff that's somewhat realistic. I mean, it'll still be pushing it a little bit, but I don't want him to be able to paint stuff and not have any actual paint on hand. So it'll probably be more like a realistic target, like a mound of dirt with a ring on it or something like that, like they used to have. Anyway, I redid the shooting animation, and he pulls out arrow, and fires, and the bow flexes, and you see, and when he pulls the arrow out, that's actually a fake arrow, and it just shows and hides itself as needed. And right about here, the actual arrow is instantiated on the bow fairly seamlessly, and that gets launched out at the correct time when he lets go. So this is the real arrow, and it'll be the one that gets created and destroyed, whereas the other one is pretty much just a child of his hand bone. And I'll show this animation from a few different angles just so you can get an idea of what it looks like. Right now all he'll do is fire at this target. It took a while to get this animation to really work that well, because I had to get the hand spacing appropriate. Let me get back over here and I'll show you. Because he has to put his hand on the middle part of the string, and he has to pull it back while having this hand hold it, and that's a lot of interaction for a single animation, especially when this bow is in a separate animation. Now, I did have a animation before that had a bow in his hand, but it was a different size bow and a little bit different animation, so I wanted to kind of tweak it a little bit, make it a little bit more smooth. And so I redid that, and took a bit of work, because every little change you make in this, the bow's animation has to stay in sync with it. So I had to make it the exact same length and make sure it repeats as necessary at the exact same time. And all these scripts call both the bow and the person's animation at the same time. Now, I haven't worked out too much about the arrow speed and all that. I don't want it to look too silly, but I don't want it to miss either, because the whole point of this game is to create your own arrows and not waste them. So unless I give the player the ability to pick up the arrows off the ground, which would be a little bit tedious trying to find them, because you can shoot from quite a distance. I can go all the way over here and shoot the target, and it'll still hit. So trying to track down these little tiny arrows on even grass textures would be fairly annoying. So I'm going to try to make it so that they just don't miss. But I might make it so the enemies with shields rather, can block the attacks, or at least have a chance to block the attacks. Not every time, or it wouldn't be any point using the bow. But as you can see, it's a little bit slow from a distance. Up close, it's not so bad. And you get about right here. Isn't too big of a deal. I added this trail which is just the Unity's default trail renderer. I just modified it a little bit. I put his accessories on his back like this, even though pictures of the longbowman had it on the side occasionally, but it was getting in the way, and I just didn't like the way it looked there. I thought it was just easier to animate with it back here, out of the way, because there's nothing really back on his back anyway. I mean, the sword scabbard thing is over here. You can't really see it very well. There, you can see it sticking out there. But, you know, he's also going to have a little tiny shield on his belt somewhere eventually. And all this will show and hide depending on what he's using. So the bow will be on his back if he's using the sword and whatnot. Not a whole lot else has changed. A little bit different textures, trying out some stuff. I may get rid of these trees and make them all in a 3D app or something like that, just to make them a little bit better. And since I might not be using the leafy trees, I might make some weeds or something to put here and there for some green to mix up the scenery a little bit. But I want the world to be mostly dead and barren, so you have to kind of find everything, and gives you a reason to go around the map looking for stuff rather than just build a base here and then just stay there and forever. So you have to actually use the land and explore and eventually fight people or whatnot. So that's about it for this update. I just wanted to show a few basic things I've been working on, and I'll probably keep tweaking these. I mean, this shooting animation and walking animation are going to be the most used animations, or the most seen animations, so I'll be tweaking those. Plus I'll be reusing some of these for other characters as well. And I may give the enemies the ability to carry stuff as well, but I haven't decided yet. But these barrels and crates will contain various supplies like food or other supplies you can use. So if you build a food station or a blacksmith station, something like that, you can use those. So anyway, that's all for today, and I'll see you next time.